our guest now. Barbara Slavin is a distinguished fellow at the Stimson Center, and she is joining us from Washington, D.C. Barbara, thank you very much for joining us for this breaking news. I just first off want to get your impressions of the selection of Mojtaba Khamenei for the new supreme leader of Iran.
Sure. Thanks for having me. And it's Slavin, by the way, Barbara Slavin.
My apologies. Thank you very much.
That's okay. It's a crazy day. It's a real finger in the eye to Donald Trump, who explicitly said he didn't want Mojtaba Khamenei. It makes the whole U.S. Project, the whole U.S.-Israeli war, even more senseless. To kill Ayatollah Khamenei and then simply get his son in his place, somebody who's going to be furious, of course, at the murder of his father, his mother, his wife, and one of his children in the Israeli strike, just a week ago.
Surely the United States and Israel, though, must have anticipated that this could have been what would happen. That had to have factored into the plans.
I don't know if they did, although here I'm reading something I wrote in 2019 with a colleague, Abbas Kadim, when I was at the Atlantic Council, where we talked about who might succeed Khamenei. And here we had Mojtaba. We said that obviously it was controversial because it would look too much like a monarchy and hereditary succession. But Mojtaba has the necessary connections with the IRGC and the paramilitary Basij, as well as insight into his father's vast financial resources. So probably, I mean, Mojtaba has essentially been ruling with his father, who was 86, for a long time. And given the existential threat that the Islamic Republic faces, it seems quite logical that they would put Mojtaba there because he knows everyone and everything. And will not need to have a learning curve in order to fulfill this job. Of course, he will be controversial because he is associated with repression. In fact, we noted back in 2019 that he was rumored to have played a major role in orchestrating the fraudulent re-election of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad for president in 2009 during the Green Movement. So he will not be a popular choice. He is not by any means someone who seems likely to bring more human rights and democracy to Iran. That said, he's 56, so he will be different from his father, assuming he survives, and that he now has a target on his back. I think the Israelis have made that very clear. But he is a younger generation and therefore will bring something different to the role.
Barbara, I wonder how you feel that this news will be received in America by Americans, if they will see it as you do, as sort of, we've been doing this for a week now and we've got pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's going to increase the sense in the United States that this war was a mistake, a tremendous mistake. We now have, 7 dead Americans, over 1,000 others killed, mostly in Iran, but also some in Israel and in the GCC states. Enormous economic dislocation, the price of oil skyrocketing, massive destruction of infrastructure. For what? To get Mojtaba Khamenei as Iran's supreme leader. Okay.
All right, Barbara Slavin, thank you very much for your time and your insight, and for joining us here on Al Jazeera. Let's bring in Ali Khamenei again, who joins me now on the desk. Ali, I wonder your reaction to what Barbara was saying, that how the optics of this may play in the United States as the administration is continuing to try to hone its message to Americans and try to garner support for this military conflict, how this might play.
Well, this is a two-sided game. It's not one-sided. It's not just President Trump who runs the show. So there's another side, and the other side is the Iranians. And they seem to be defiant, and they seem to be insisting on not surrendering. And this is what President Trump wants. He wants them to surrender. So the only thing that they are showing is that they're not surrendering. So the fact that these are all issues that will really provoke President Trump to heighten his own pressure on the Iranian government. We are going to see a new phase in this war. Probably from tomorrow on, we will see more attacks, and they will be looking for Khamenei to kill him, the new Khamenei. Now, they killed a Khamenei in his 86. Now they have another copy of Khamenei in his 56, 30 years younger.
Right. And I wonder how you think this is going to, what the reaction is going to be from Iran's neighbors in the Gulf about this. Because if he does take the helm as supreme leader, and he does, as you say, take a defiant stance, take a hardline stance, especially when it comes to the military conflict we're seeing, surely the Gulf neighbors will also have some concern about that.
Well, absolutely. The Gulf neighbors already have concerns. What's been happening now, regardless of them not announcing that they are in a situation of war with Iran, but it's a de facto war situation, whereas they are being hit by Iranian drones and missiles on daily basis. The Iranians say that they are launching rockets and drones towards American interests, but these rockets and drones are hitting the lands of these countries. So they're already in a situation of hostility with Iran. The way they are going to receive Mojtaba's election or selection, I think it's going to be with a lot of concern on one side, and at the same time, they'll be watching. They'll be watching. Maybe he'll come with something new. Maybe he will surprise them, opening towards the region. But, you know, it's not the right time because this is war.
Right. These are all things we will have to wait and see. All right, let's bring in Heidi Jo Castro now, who is live for us in Washington, D.C. And Heidi, we were talking there with our guest about how the Trump administration might be reacting to this. Do we have any idea how that may go?
It's interesting that President Trump has not put out a statement yet directly in response to the announcement of Mojtaba Khamenei as the Iranian's new supreme leader. But we do know just earlier, about a few hours ago, he did tell ABC News that whoever this new leader is, if it's selected without Trump's own approval, that this person would not last for long. But of course, Mojtaba Khamenei has been at the top of the list for potential successors to the supreme leader's position. And Trump last week told Axios that he did not consider Mojtaba Khamenei as someone who was competent. He called him a lightweight and said that his selection would be unacceptable. A lot of words in a way to try to threaten his way into getting the leadership that he wanted in Iran. But as many critics and analysts had pointed out, without any U.S. boots on the ground in Iran, there was almost zero influence that the U.S. president would be able to have over who becomes this new leader. So now we're still waiting for a response directly from the president. We're also waiting for other members of his administration. It seems that people are all waiting for Trump to weigh in first. And just as our guest said earlier, the fact that now to have had 7 U.S. service members killed in this war that's lasted only a little over a week, and for the outcome of this, which Trump initially said would be regime change, in which he asked the Iranian people to rise up and seize the moment, he said, for that moment to now result in the son of the former supreme leader who was assassinated to now take over, this is not the scenario that the Trump administration had wanted.
All right, Heidi Jo Castro in Washington. Let's bring Mohammed Val back in, who's in the Iranian capital for us. So, Mohammed, we understand that all of this is happening not just because the supreme leader is being announced, and as Ali Khamenei has been telling us, he's coming in obviously as the supreme leader of the entire institution and will now be the commander of what Iran does in this war. But I also wonder, Ali, if you could tell us, or sorry, Mohammed, if you could tell us a bit about what is happening in Iran tonight and what the background of all of this is in Iran.
Yeah, really what's happening now is more messages of support for the election of the new supreme leader. We have heard already from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and now we have heard just a while ago from the armed forces. And that means the armed forces with its several components, including the Basij. Those are the paramilitary hundreds of thousands of people. The armed forces has announced its support to the election of Mojtaba Khamenei as the new supreme leader of the country. That's very crucial. We have also the Supreme National Security Council led by Ali Khamenei. Ali Khamenei on the phone talked to the media here, the Iranian national media, about his support and the support of his council for this appointment. So again, this is what matters for Iranians tonight, for the revolutionary structures to be back on track, just as intact as they were before the beginning of this war and the assassination of the late supreme leader. I am sure that this is a very negative message for the Americans and the Israelis, something they didn't want maybe to hear, because they were betting, according to Iranians here, Americans and Israelis were betting on the disintegration of Iran politically, of the revolutionary structures, immediately because of the assassination of the late supreme leader. So that's not what's happening. Iranians are putting their act together again and announcing a supreme leader. And remember, the supreme leader is the guarantor of national unity. He's the head of the armed forces. He's the head of the political structures and so on. And he's the man who can make people who are divergent in views, who can talk to each of them and listen, and they listen to him, because that's the Shia ideology. One man is the central figure in the country and everybody is listening to him. He has the religious, the spiritual authority, and also the political clout, the political prerogative as per the constitution to unite the country. And this is what Iranians have been waiting for, regardless of what the opposition is thinking about. As I told you before, the Iranians in the opposition side, they are not expected to be allowed right now and to talk about this. Maybe they will not show support, but they will not go into the streets to oppose this, because this is not the time for it. Iran is under bombardment and attacks and so on. Everybody is concerned for their security. And also there is that feeling that among Iranians, but that this is the time of a feeling of nationalism, that the enemy is on the gates and the country is under the risk of being invaded, dissected, divided, probably civil war and so on. So this is a very dangerous moment here in Iran, and you can hear right now, expected to hear only the voices of those who support this election.
And Mohammed, you know, we already know, and we've talked about the fact that Israel and the United States have said that whoever is the new supreme leader will be in their crosshairs, and they do plan on another assassination. I wonder, will people in Iran be waiting to hear from the American president? Will they also find it interesting that there has not been a comment made yet?
Well, Iranians might be waiting for any announcement for the Americans and Israelis, but they are expecting, they already know what the Americans and Israelis are going to say, because they have already said it. But I don't think the Iranians, or at least when I talk to Iranians, they're not much concerned about what the Americans are saying. And that's why the Iranians have taken their own decision to elect a leader who is not pleasing to the Americans and the Israelis. It's, as we said, it's again, it's an act of defiance. The Iranians are sending a message to the world that this is a sovereign nation that chooses its own leaders according to its own constitution and not according to diktats coming from others, even if the others are powerful nations, empires that are ruling the world and so on. Iran is just in the same manner they are defying militarily and striking back against the most powerful superpower in the world, are also politically making the same thing and taking decisions that please them, not please their enemy.
Let's go to Rory Challence now, who joins us live from Amman. And Rory, I wonder, we already know that Israel was planning on, as they say, assassinating or taking out the successor of the supreme leader. Have we heard anything from them so far now that the successor has been named?
Well, of course, this news is going to be being analysed right now in Israel very closely indeed. I think what we're going to get is basically two linked but slightly separate approaches. The first is what Israel is going to be saying in public, and that is essentially that this doesn't really change anything at all, that the new leader of Iran is going to be a target just like the old leader of Iran was, and that he is going to be hunted. They are going to be looking for any opportunity that they can get to strike. They'll be analyzing their comms, their information, their SIGINTs, all of these things that allow them to go after the previous supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei's father. They're going to be doing exactly the same for this new guy, and I think they're going to be pretty candid about that. They've telegraphed that already. Essentially, for the Israelis, they have a position that it doesn't matter about the personality, it doesn't matter about the man at the top. It's the system that they feel is an enemy of Israel, and that they will continue their policies against Iran as long as the Iranian leadership continues its policies against Israel. But beyond that, I think they'll be interested about who this new guy is and what his appointment as the supreme leader says about the status, about the stability of the regime. They'll be interested that he is the son of the former supreme leader, and that they'll be asking questions at the moment. What does this say? Does this mean that this is now moving into a dynasty? Does that suggest that the Islamic Revolution is betraying its kind of original tenets, that this was not a system that handed power from father to son? And if it is becoming that, does that mean that the system is decaying? Of course, since this war started last week, you know, the Iranian system, the Iranian regime is now in full-on survival mode. It is fighting with every sinew for its durability. And if it is now moving into a dynastic situation, is that a suggestion that the cracks are starting to widen within the regime? That is the kind of thing that the Israelis are going to be looking at now. Of course, we don't have answers to those questions at the moment. The Israelis don't have answers to those questions at the moment, but they're certainly going to be asking them.
All right, Rory Challen's live for us in Amman. Rory, thank you very much. Now let's bring in Abbas Eslani, who is a senior research fellow at the Center for Middle East Strategic Studies. He is joining us from Tehran. Abbas, thank you very much for joining us. I wonder, first of all, what your reaction is to the appointment of the new supreme leader.
Well, this election is coming at a time of a conflict with the United States and Israel, and this makes it a bit more meaningful. And this somehow signals the continuity here in Iran, because many are interpreting his election as the continuation of the previous approach that Iran has had under his father. And they may call it as a rejuvenated version of his father. And this indicates that if you place it into the context, this somehow shows that the country is somehow prioritizing the security and the survival at this specific time, because the country needs to navigate through this challenging time that it is facing. There was a vacuum created as a result of the loss of the leader, meaning his father, that needed to be filled. But also he has not had a, let's say, official role in the government. This might be the question for many, but he was somehow involved previously in the developments that happened in the country. And maybe previously, if it was in the shadow, he is coming to the light and assuming the new role as the leader.
And Abbas, some of our guests have mentioned, and Rory was just talking about it just a moment ago before you joined us, that there was some concern that he may be the appointment for the next supreme leader because of the hereditary link with Ali Khamenei. And I wonder what your reaction to that is and what you think the reaction of the Iranian people will be to that.
Well, normally, election of a leader didn't used to be part of a hereditary, let's say, system. But according, I think, to the context, maybe the system is moving toward a dynamic one, a new type of, let's say, succession. And we are at a time that, electing a new leader could be somehow very difficult. And maybe those figures or candidates would not be many. And risking the situation, specifically at a time of an ongoing conflict, was difficult. And many were, asking for an election of a new leader who could be somehow functioning in a manner that can navigate the country through this challenging time. Maybe that's why, as I said earlier, the country, this indicates that wants to prioritize the survival and security to maybe, let's say, a political, reform. And somebody who was well familiar with, let's say, issues or connected to other institutions was the son of the late leader. So this is taking place. And I think this might raise some questions, but I think what we see in action, his approach, his policies, how he will lead the country, in the longer term, this will be more important, and I think the public will pay more attention to this.
Ali, I want to pick up on that too, because we don't know exactly what that will be. We don't know what his policies will be. We don't know any of that because he has not been a prominent political figure or held a point in government, as Abbas alluded to and you alluded to before. He's been sort of a shadowy figure in the past. So I wonder if you could please, for our viewers, bring us up to speed on what we do know so far about Mojtaba Khamenei.
Well, what we know is he was so close to his father. He has this tendency, such as his father, with respect to the revolutionary vision. His position towards the United States is very hostile. His position towards Israel is the same. And now in the middle of the war, and I was telling you, he's not just a new supreme leader. He's a supreme leader coming after his father, his mother, his wife, and his child were all killed together. So he is an avenger in a way or another. He's coming to avenge for the blood and also at the time to lead the country at a time of war. So it's not really expected to see except someone who is confronting. So he's a confronting leader and not a moderate leader, not a leader coming to open windows for diplomacy, at least for the moment. Yet, if this war comes to an end and Mojtaba Khamenei is still alive, and there is a window for, let me say, a settlement, Mojtaba Khamenei is well positioned to be able to take big decisions then and to bring Iran down the ladder in a way or another. In a way, no one will come and say that this is a traitor or this is giving up on our rights and dignity, because he was in the middle of this. He already have the baggage on his back, and he will be able to call the shots easily because he is in the right position for that.
Symbolically, it's a very big choice. Abbas, I wonder to you, for people who were wondering if an appointment of a new supreme leader would provide a diplomatic off-ramp here, or even just maybe not even a full off-ramp, but just a way to crack open the door a little bit. Is this the man to do it, in your estimation?
I think for the country, that was a very significant issue to have somebody in this role who was well aware of the security, political, and lots of the aspects that is related to a leadership role. And from this perspective, he is the most well-suited person to assume the job. And, this seems to be somehow, as Ali said earlier, is somehow continuity, and he is supposed to be the younger version of his father. And many who have been even critical of the current system or the economic hardship that exists in the country thought that the late leader was the one who could unite and, function as a focal point for different factions to unite. So this unity within this context, within, against the backdrop of ongoing conflict is very important. So from this perspective, I think as he is the continuation of his father, could be very important. And the others, compared to Mojtaba Khamenei, maybe they didn't, enjoy that much position. As I said earlier, he was in the shadow, meaning that he was involved in many those issues in the past. So he knows how the situation exactly is, so he could be a better person to decide when it comes to very important issues like security related to war, or and make decisions to challenge this difficult time.
But Abbas, I also want to ask you about the security concerns that he will and the council will have for himself as this goes on, because we know that Israel and the U.S. have said that whoever is elected as the new supreme leader will be a target. What sort of action will be taken to try to mitigate that risk against the new supreme leader? Do you know?
Well, this is not a surprise that the U.S. and Israel were willing to assassinate the new leader as well. They have made that threat public. But I think in terms of security protocols, there will be some measures in order to make sure that he will be in a safe and secure place. But this danger existed, but I think leaving that vacuum in place would be more dangerous for the country at a time of this aggression against Iran, because the country needed that leader in order to unite different factions and maybe to stop the internal and domestic competition between different factions to elect a new leader. They now need to be focused on an external enemy. And so leading through this difficult time needed somebody who could make important decisions, who could have, influential role in, let's say, setting the future direction in terms of the ongoing war or many issues in bigger picture. So that's why, despite the threat of assassination, it was more important for the country to have the new leader in place. And so the danger of not having a new leader could even be more than assassination danger.
And Ali, to you, this may be also of concern to the United States and Israel, not just because, Donald Trump had mentioned that he wanted to have a hand in choosing the next supreme leader, and he didn't seem very excited about the prospect of Mojtaba Khamenei, but also because part of the goal of this military campaign was to sort of dismantle this regime enough to give rise to a portion of the Iranian people who wanted to take over their government. So symbolically, seeing this sort of function the way it was actually intended must not be what they were hoping for in this moment.
Well, there is a misunderstanding when it comes to how President Trump is seeing Iran. Iran is a 3,000 years old country. It's not a banana state. It's a country with a system, and this system is deep and entrenched, and it's a revolutionary system that's already being raising the slogan, "Death to America," for years. So I don't know how President Trump was expecting that this same revolutionary system is going to surrender and accept that he can have a say in the choice of its own leader. So I think there are a lot of misconceptions and maybe sometimes a lot of, it's a superficial, let me say, analysis of the situation. Iran has been in this situation for years, and it's always been in the situation of challenging the United States. It's been one of the main, let me say, objectives of the Islamic Republic in this region was to make the United States' life in this region very bad. So how is he expecting that they are going to surrender in order for him to win this war? I think that was the main issue and the main problem in the way he saw the picture. Now, the possibility of him killing Mojtaba just as he killed Ali Khamenei and killing even the one who might come after Mojtaba, this is something else. It's related to how the military and security dynamics are. But I don't see that the Iranians are going to surrender this way.
Abbas Aslani in Tehran and Ali Khamenei here with me in Doha. Thank you both very much for your analysis on this.